Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Future Tech podcast series. It's me, Charlie Sell, the MD at Arrows Group, and hosting a podcast series. And we're on series 2 now. So we are specifically looking at the cybersecurity space, speaking to CISOs, professionals within cyber, asking a bit about their story, thoughts on the market, and of course, that all important question, advice for STEM graduates, or in fact anyone looking to get in to cybersecurity. It's Cyber Awareness Month in October, so what better time to be doing this podcast? And really pleased to have our second guest of the series, which is Matt Holland. Matt is interim CISO, worked for companies most recently like John Lewis, Unilever, and even more recently, now looking at a PhD. So what a story. I think we'll get there. And we'll go into the different topics. So hi, Matt. Welcome to the show.
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for
Really,
having me.
really well. How are you today?
Yeah, good, thanks. Good.
Good. We were saying you've been able to sort of brush the hair, get the beard trimmed, ready for this show for the listeners out there and the few people watching.
Yeah, feels like an unfamiliar habit.
And I guess that leads us nicely into let's hear a bit about the story.
Yeah, so I didn't start off my working career knowing I wanted to be a cybersecurity specialist. I came from quite a varied background. I've been doing cybersecurity now for 20, 25 years or so, but started off running a skateboard shop when I left school. I went from skateboard shops to motorbike racing. I was a professional motorbike racer for a couple of years. Proved to be quite unsuccessful, started to fall off a lot. Thought it was sculpture at Euro Disney. When Euro Disney Paris was opening, I created a lot of the theming and the scenery around the park there. That started to come to an end when the park opened, so I returned to the UK and went back to university wanting to be a designer, a car designer specifically. So I started a course to get that through, started a bachelor's degree in product design, finished that and joined consultancies. Didn't pursue the dream of car design. I came to London, joined an IT consultancy. I joined Capgemini straight from university. And from there, started to form what's now proven to be a cybersecurity career. It wasn't at the time. I don't think there was much defined in terms of a profession or roles around cybersecurity. But it's proven to be a long-standing and very enjoyable career. 25 years or so, gone from analyst and engineering work, very technical, through to CISO roles in world-leading organizations. And now I'm coming back full circle. I've embarked on a PhD back at Coventry University to do automotive design of one form or another. I'm doing cybersecurity around autonomous vehicles.
Wow. Well, so that really is quite a nice sort of niche within the niche then, looking at the importance of, and what tempted you to get into cyber for autonomous vehicles? Where's that come from?
I think it's a really real problem. It's a very tangible issue. I did a master's recently and wrote the thesis for the master's around the same topic, but on a more strategic level, like how are we going to end up getting autonomous vehicles? A big blocker is cybersecurity. A lot of fears, a lot of regulation impeding our progress there. It just struck me that the benefits from autonomous vehicles are huge globally in terms of safety, in terms of all sorts of societal improvements. But cybersecurity is up there as one of the things holding us back. There are many other issues, but cybersecurity is the one I feel I can contribute to. So
Yeah.
I decided to take it on.
Yeah, fantastic. And well, we were talking just before the show, weren't we, that there's so many innovative companies that are now entering the market when it comes to autonomous vehicles or engineering as a whole. So cyber really is going to be prevalent across many of those businesses and the wider field.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, you can look over to the valley, sort of West Coast America. You see the amount of money being put into the space. It gives you a sense that there's a bright future in this area. As you say, the benefits are very tangible. Improved safety. It's right up there as global motivators to fix the problem.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so let's move on to the thoughts of where cyber's moving to then, and the impact of cyber.
Yeah, so I tend to look at these things from a macro level first of all, like big picture kind of stuff, and try and distill that down to trends that impact me or my clients or partner organisations I work with, or more currently my research. And there's a couple that stick out. So the societal dependence on IT has been growing over generations. We get more and more technology, we exploit it more and more. We have a huge dependence now globally on the internet, and we're seeing that extend in things like Internet of Things, for example, on a personal level. We probably all have Alexas and Googles knocking around our home. But in factories and manufacturing, the dependence on operational technology to help bring about more efficient production, or in supply chains, technology is just much more embedded in our day-to-day lives than we probably would recognize, and is only going to increase as it becomes cheaper, more commoditized, more effective. Second macro trend, I think what we've seen is politically, we're seeing differences, again, East-West, rising tensions there, political and trade issues. We talk about Brexit having a huge effect. So political tensions rising. And then we look back down to technology, and we see an increasing use of AI in what would have been previously human-powered activities. We're now able to outsource that to AI and machine learning kind of improvements. And then we see these technology improvements being used both for good and bad. So if you take all of that landscape at the high level, you can see there's a richer set of tools for bad actors to use. The idea of using AI to create or fake followers and therefore influence political outcomes. We've seen that over American elections, over UK elections. If we look at the use of technology enhancements, AI again for hacking, for bad activity on our websites, it's been well documented, the use of denial of service attacks as a service, for example. Again, not human powered, it's become a capability for these bad actors because technology has enabled it.
Yeah.
The inverse of that is we can use these technology enhancements for good as well. So we're seeing a lot of security products incorporating artificial intelligence to make the response or the detection of security attacks much more effective, much quicker.
Yeah, so AI, and it really is a key area where cyber is both being used as for the good and bad then, essentially.
Yeah, I think in all technology enhancements that we've seen over time, they come back on both sides of the coin. My view personally is that cybersecurity is always chasing the bad actors. Over many years, we don't get on the front foot very often. And when we do, that lead is very rapidly taken away from us. There's a great phrase of bad guys only have to be right once, but good guys have to be right all the time. And there's a lot more bad guys out there than good guys.
Yeah. So it must be so interesting seeing it across different industries as well, because as you said, you've been successful enough that you've worked at some really highbrow businesses, John Lewis, Unilever, but I imagine with your consultancy days, you've worked across many different businesses. Is there anything that people are getting right or specifically wrong when they look around cyber and the importance of it within their business?
Yeah, so certainly lessons learned for me that I've seen a mixture of good and bad behaviour, and the idea of leading from a strategic position rather than a technology position I think has been proven time and time again to be the correct approach. A lot of organisations have misspent a lot of money making a product choice without thinking about how it gets used, or without sticking up the resources behind it to use it properly. It's a rich market space for a lot of vendors. There's a lot of technology out there, most of it very good as well. I don't think it's a flaw in the technologies, but unless you've really thought through what the requirements are and how you're going to operationalize it, it's just like going shopping when you're hungry sort of thing. You'll fill your shopping trolley and then not really know what to do with it. A lot of it will go stale in your fridge. You'll need to throw it out.
Right.
A shopping metaphor, apologies.
Yeah, that was a perfect one to understand, because I guess something I've seen from from the recruitment side of things, is more and more of our own clients are now bringing cyber in-house. So it feels like there's a general trend of sort of moving away from outsourcing your cyber needs and now thinking actually this is something that we need to control ourselves. Is that a fair statement from what you've seen over the past 5 years?
Yeah, I think in part. So what I've seen, the joy of being in the industry for a long time is I've seen it mature. If I go back to early days in consultancy, you were a cyber security person or an information security person, or even further back, IT security person, as we've all been badged one time or another. It was a singular job. You were either in it or you weren't in it. What's happened over years is it's matured and diversified. So it's no longer sufficient to describe yourself as a cybersecurity professional. There's all manner of different strands and professions within it. So you could be a SOC analyst, you could be a threat engineer, you can be a GRC or risk assessment professional. All of them legitimate and quite defined and quite broad roles in their own right. And what I've seen through the years is initially there was a groundswell of building that skill set and capability in-house. Then there was an expansion, so lots of them fragmented off and became services you could buy or skill sets you'd need to acquire through third parties, consultancies and systems integrators, for example. Then they diversify more and you find actually I need that skill set in-house if I'm really going to mature it. So I think there's a good position developing. It's been in place in the market for quite some time now in terms of hybrid approaches to security. Pick and mix the skill set and capability you need in-house, depending on the sector that you're in. So which capabilities are really business critical for you versus commodity services. What could I outsource to somebody without losing quality or losing the insights that I'd gain from it in the rest of the business? And there's a really mature marketplace out there to provide pretty much any service you need, either outsourcing it or just buying software as a service to do discrete acts.
Yeah, and that's a great viewpoint on it. And as you said, that the amount of roles are now being created out of such an important sector, and I guess that leads really nicely onto sort of the last, but probably one of the most poignant questions, which is your advice to people who are wanting to get into cyber, whether that's the STEM graduate studying it, or even people maybe even trying to cross-train into it. What if you were speaking to these STEM graduates, what would be your little words of wisdom?
Yeah, so I think depending where you're starting from, if you're really coming at this fresh, either fresh out of university or, as you say, a mover from a very different topic, utterly essential in my mind to know the basics and have a really wide platform to step forward from. As much as we've just talked about, there are lots of diverse roles in there. They all come down to having a solid base of knowledge and then springing up into a sort of upside down T model is the one that was espoused to me very early in my career. And I've stuck with it. And if I'm honest, it's benefited me countless times. I may have dipped a toe into different vertical columns through my time, but that's the benefit of being aged. I've gone through this multiple iterations. Certainly focus on getting the basics in place in your own career, in your own understanding. Make sure you know how different roles are going to interact and use that to develop your choices around your specialisms. As we say, there's 101 different types of cybersecurity professional these days. Talk to as many of them as you can, understand what their day-to-day work is, get an idea for what working in their shoes might look like for you, and match it to your own skills and preferences. I don't hold to the ideal that everybody has to be good at everything, but work's an important part of our days, and it's a good thing to enjoy it. I've been very fortunate that I thoroughly enjoyed my career, and I think I've done that by picking the kind of tasks that I've found myself to be good at, or that I've had good enough support around me to acquire those skills.
Yeah, and that I think that's another really good point, that work is or life is to live, and you shouldn't work for a paycheck. So you've got to enjoy what you do. So there should also be probably a natural interest in cyber, or in how things work, or what people are trying to achieve or not achieve, or do right or wrong, to throw yourself into it.
Yeah, and it's hard. We have to be honest. There'll be long hours. There'll be difficult challenges ahead of you, and it's really much harder to do that if you don't enjoy the topic underneath it all.
Yeah, yeah. No, again, and I suppose you're living proof of that as well, where you've gone sort of full circle, going back into academia to continue looking at stuff that you love and enjoy, to probably come out the other end and be able to move again and add value and add focus on areas that you really do enjoy.
Yeah, I'm hoping so. I mean, the research itself, as we talked about, is quite narrow, quite specific. But actually, the real world application of that same research when I come out, I imagine it to be quite well distributed. The same topics are being talked about in all sorts of business contexts. It's not just autonomous cars that have a lot of monitoring and high connectivity and very high safety requirements. You look at the maritime sector, for example, or the aerospace industry. It's really not all that different.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I totally agree with you there. When you do look at, it's the Industry 4.0 wider concept, isn't it? It really is, from manufacturing all the way through to automate to aviation. The fundamentals, because of technology underpinning everything, is so similar now, isn't it?
Yeah, and we go full circle in this conversation. You talked about how I've not stayed in one particular sector. That's been a really deliberate act in my part. I love the topic. I find the topic genuinely applicable in all sorts of different scenarios, even on the theoretical risk level. It's hugely beneficial to companies to understand how they manage and where their risks are coming from. And for me, that doesn't matter whether it's a retail sector or a defense sector. They have to go through the same acts. My skills are the discipline of going through that act. It's the same thing with the research, as we've just talked about.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, Matt, thank you. That's been really, really interesting and great to, as you say, get to see a real life viewpoint on it all. And you give cyber it feels like a simplicity under a very complex, market or vertical, I guess. So thank you very much. Really, really good.
You're welcome. Thanks very much for having me.
Great. So everybody, that is our second episode of our Series 2 Future Tech podcast series, where we have been focusing on cyber, ready for the Cyber Awareness Month in October. This will be posted on the career portals of the students or the universities that we're partnered with, along with our Spotify channel and clips following LinkedIn. So please follow us, look on Spotify. Hope it's been really interesting. And here's another episode. Thank you.